the reminder didn't go out till this morning. I don't know what happened.
Yeah,
but
that's weird.
I know.
Yeah.
But thank you for being here.
So many reminders for 10th grade parents. The PACT, the day-to-day.
Yeah, I think that went well yesterday.
Yeah.
So everybody was there.
We circled through. Coach Porter were you in the ACT or were you in the PSAT?
Pre-ACT.
I was in the pre-ACT, and then I went and got a couple kids, and then
Yes.
Made sure everyone was there.
That's a nice thing about VES. When someone's not there and they live here, we have bouncers, gentle, reminders of
gentle knock on the door.
Yes, hello, friends.
Yes. Guess what you have this morning? That's nice. Very nice.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started, and I'm sure a few more people will show up. And hello to everyone who's watching from home or watching a recording. We're excited to be here in our new space, which we're so fortunate to have. It's been a game changer in terms of our work with students, because we can, have larger groups in here. When your students are meeting with us for the junior seminar next year, we get to just meet in this space and everyone fits comfortably. And we have kids who come here and hang out during breaks. Over the summer, our offices are sort of in these cubes right now, but there'll be dividers put up so we each have a little bit more privacy. But we're thrilled to be here and are already feeling how much it's helping in our work with students.
And the other game changer, we haven't done introductions, but the biggest game changer is the addition in our office. And we love it because not only do we have this communal space, but we have the person who is bringing students here in droves. That's really exciting.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Matt Porter. Last year I was in admissions, and so I moved to college counseling this year. I'm also helping with the scholarship program, Ellison Scholars, which we just started this year. And then I dorm head in Randolph, which is 11th and 12th grade boys, head football coach and advisor as well.
Yeah, I think Amy and I used to sort of flatter ourselves and think we were like a little bit popular on campus, but now we know what it's like to be really popular on campus, because there's students just coming like, where's Mr. Porter? Where's Mr. Porter?
We get all excited if there's like, a 9th or 10th grader who's stopping by and we're thinking, it's for college count. Like, yes, come on. And then that's okay.
It is, yeah.
We steal our moments.
I know. But I will say, and we'll talk about this in a bit, we've had more sophomores this year, I think, schedule meetings with us to talk about schedules and other questions they have than I can remember in the past. Yeah. So I love that this class is already, very comfortable working with us. And
yes, and we're very familiar with this class for obvious reasons. And for those of you who don't know, Mimi and I both have children in the sophomore class.
Right.
So we've known many of your students since, kindergarten or before. Yeah. Which is really cool.
So we joked with Matt and told him we were just going to sit here and he would run the session so we could enjoy being parents. And I'd also love to introduce Jenna Vermilia, who's our testing coordinator and assistant. And as we always say, always open your emails from Jenna. And she puts great information in the newsletter too regarding testing deadlines, sign-up deadlines, all the information you need. So we're so lucky for her help.
Yeah. Yesterday was a great success, so hopefully your students came home positive and happy to check off the pre-ACT, and no more testing for this academic year for them, hopefully. So, yes, exciting news for them.
Yes, thank you, Jenna.
Can we introduce yourself?
Oh, yes, I know. I'm Mimi Chitlish. I'm the Director of College Counseling. This is my 17th year here. I started out teaching English. I teach the 9th grade critical thinking class, and I think this is the best job on campus.
Yes, and my name is Amy Kadelka. I'm the Associate Director of College Counseling. This is my 25th off and on year here, and I am a dorm parent in Jet, as is Mimi, and have 3 kids, one who's graduated from VES, and I have 2 current students, a junior and a sophomore.
And again, I have a current 10th grader and a 4th grader, so it's a long journey to get here still. But. All right, well, we have, I hope you all got this sheet. This is just a little guideline to shape our conversation, but we hope you'll jump in with questions at any point. And we also want to wrap up by sharing some of our insights based on this past year in college counseling, the decisions that our seniors have gotten. They've all gotten their decisions back now, except sort of waitlist movement. That's the last piece. And there are certain patterns we've seen that are really interesting that we'll share with you too. But just to start with, our tips for sophomore year, now that it's almost over. High school flies by, doesn't it? Goes so fast. We hope that students this year have continued to develop study skills and figure out the study habits that work best for them, and are really focused on earning the best grades that they could within the schedule that was best suited for them in terms of what was challenging. And I know a lot of your kids did challenge themselves a little bit more in their courses this year than last year. And hopefully they kept meeting with teachers and getting the extra support they needed to do their best. And hopefully they also found ways to engage in the greater school community. And that can be through afternoon activities, clubs, just stepping in to help out. If you see, let's say, a group's hosting a bake sale and you're not even a part of it, but it looks like they don't have enough people, to step in and say, hey, can you, do you need a hand? I think a lot of our students do that, and that is just as important as different titles and all of that, and the faculty see that and see those character elements that are so important.
When we met with your students right before Christmas, that was sort of the message that we delivered to the 10th grade. And the grades matter was probably sort of the highlight, and sharing, here's the transcript, and as 10th graders, you're sort of midway through that what's going to be on the transcript for those students who are applying early decision, early action. And I think, there were some surprised, faces, and then others were like, yeah, I got this. But the message really for us is, when you're looking at 8 semesters of high school, 6 semesters are the ones that are on the transcript that the colleges are going to see initially. And so, the message that we presented was, this is the story, the first story that the schools are going to see. And so, the grades matter.
We don't want to stress them out or cause more anxiety, but we feel like it's important for them to realize that, because I know the first semester of sophomore year still feels so early for all of us, but really it is the halfway point in terms of grades that colleges see, which is why. Yeah, they will see their senior schedule, and that's another really important puzzle piece in the decisions colleges make. But, I think I applied to most of my colleges, over Christmas break. Back in the 90s, almost 100% of our students are submitting applications by November 1st now, and it's going to be the same for your class. So.
And I applied to my 3 schools in the 80s, and I think my applications I sent in like January, February, so things have changed a lot since then.
Yeah, it's gotten a lot earlier. Yeah, so just something to be aware of coming down the pike.
Yeah.
So again, students took the PSAT, and you should have gotten those results. That was an October test. Results came in December. You got an email from us that all those scores are posted on SCORE, which is a service we use, but also students got a direct email from the College Board with the SCORE report.
Just, PSA for SCORE, SCOIR. If those of you who want access don't have access, please reach out to us, and we can make sure that you have another invitation sent, or if you can't figure out your password or anything like that, just reach out and we can make sure that you can log in.
Yeah, that's the platform we use to keep track of students' test scores, their academic record, and eventually it's where their college list will live, and we use it to send documents to colleges too. But so they took the pre-ACT yesterday. Those results, Jenna, do you remember when those come back?
Typically late May, June.
Yeah, it takes a while because we actually mail them in. and then we get them back. But we'll have those by late May, and then we try to work quickly to make an individualized testing report for each of your kids, which they'll get, where we compare the results on the PSAT and the pre-ACT and let you know which one, based on those results, they're likely to do best on. And I would say about a third of the students lean towards ACT, a third lean towards SAT, and then a third if they're equal, they're equivalent. But hopefully that helps save time and money in terms of test prep efforts. If there's like one test that they're clearly performing best on, they don't need to be worrying about both. And all colleges that accept test scores, some don't now. Some are test blind, right? They won't look at them if you send them, and that's something that's changed.
The entire
Yes.
California system.
The UCs don't want to see them. But if they do want to see them, they're happy to review either the ACT or SAT. They're the same. One's not better than the other.
So I think that's an important thing. When you receive the testing report from us, which will live in SCORE also, the students will do our own recommendation for the students. And your students might say, oh, you know, the ACT is really the one I like better, even though I might have performed better on the practice SAT. So it's always a conversation. And if you are feeling really anxious because you feel like your student's performance isn't maybe what you had hoped for or what the students had hoped for, as Mimi alluded, there are so many schools that are test optional or test flexible that, you know, we have students who, you know, testing is really a secondary piece of their college process, and that's okay. There's a great list of schools where students' grades are going to be looked at, you know, in a more important than test scores. Yeah.
So we actually just spoke to a school, and they said that they do your super score.
Mm-hmm.
And so could you just clarify what that is?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yes.
So Danny asked about super scoring. So the term means that, let's say a student took the SAT 3 times, right? So they get a score, it's the English-based reading and writing score, and then they get their math score. So the super score means the college will look at the highest English-based reading and writing score and the highest math score and recombine those to have a new composite. And some schools will do that for the ACT as well. The ACT has 4 sections. Some schools, like Georgia Tech, do what we call super duper scoring, where they will sort of, I think they convert to the SAT scale and will combine the SAT and the ACT. So if a student has like a higher math ACT and a better SAT, English-based reading and writing, they will like recombine those. They just want to see the best results and review the students in the best light possible.
And most schools will say, you know, send us your best scores. You have score choice where you can kind of pick and choose which scores you want to send. There's a very, very small, tiny handful of schools that say, send us all of your scores.
Yes, yes.
But in a minority.
Yeah, like very Georgetown.
Yeah.
I think MIT used to do that as well, and now I just looked it up. They are not.
Yeah.
So maybe Georgetown and Stanford are the ones who want to see all the tests they've taken. Not the pre-ACT or PSAT, but all of the official SAT, ACTs. Yeah, good question. Yes?
You mentioned the school portal. Is that a College Board specific portal or is it BES specific portal?
Oh, good question.
So so SCORE, and it's spelled SCOIR, which is a little confusing. That is a platform that VES uses to keep track of students' academic record. It has great college search resources for students, and ultimately, when students apply to college, we will send their school documents through SCOIR. Students have access to it, you have access to it, we have access to it, so it's really the place to go to make sure we're all on the same page next year, right? When the college list is being made, and you know, definitely in senior year as documents are being sent in.
So he doesn't already have that, but something he will have junior year that we can be a part of.
He will have access to, once we send you those testing reports, you will get access to that. And next year they will use it frequently. But also, we were also talking about the student's College Board account, which they have, and that's where they can see their PSAT report. And an email went out to students, and I think parents too, I know I got it, to say the score report's ready and make sure your account's set up. We had a couple students reach out who were having a hard time setting up their account, but we can help with that. Poor Jen, bless you. Jen is we can't call and fix it for them. The students have to make that phone call, which a lot of them don't really enjoy making, understandably, making phone calls to the College Board, but we'll sit with them and help them if questions arise, but they have to, be the one doing the talking.
And then potentially the students, if the ACT is the way the students are gonna go, then they'll have an ACT account also. So it does it becomes a lot. It's a lot of materials management we talk about that used to be really all paper management. Now it's all digital management. Yeah. And so our office talks a lot about being good stewards of emails, being good stewards of the different portals, of the different accounts, because the student ultimately is responsible for those accounts. Sometimes as parents, we all are well-meaning parents and we think it's helpful to create accounts for our students, either maybe at colleges or the College Board or ACT. And then when the student goes in and tries to create that account, their username might be different or password. And so just making sure we're all on the same page and having the student know they are sort of the owner of that.
Yeah. And I know we have it last, but we sort of can't say it often enough. 90+% of the issues that arise for seniors come from not checking their emails. Like, I know email is a very not cool way to communicate, but it's the way colleges communicate. And once a student submits their application, the conversation between the college and the student all comes through via email. Usually they get an email right away asking them to set up a school-specific portal. So let's say a student applies to Virginia Tech, they hit submit, yay. They're getting an email from Virginia Tech, they have to follow the instructions in that email, set up their account, and then they have to keep checking that account and checking their emails quite regularly. And that's where we have that's where we sort of lose,
because to play
it gets
it out,
wiggly.
To play it out, the student receives an email and says, hey, you're missing this document, which might be this record that they need to fill out category because they didn't follow up in just this piece of information. And we wouldn't know that because we don't have access to the students, not able to log into certain things. So that gets frustrating, and the students get really annoyed with us probably, and did you create your portal? Have you done this? But then are very thankful when, it's like, oh my gosh, I forgot to do this, and, I did it. Yeah. Just as a side note, Matt and Mimi and I, we met with juniors last week, and the task of the day was to create common application accounts. And in the common application, which will be the real deal application they'll use, we had students use a Gmail or an iCloud account. And that is, we're helping juniors understand now that's the email you're going to check. So, as far as a partnership and encouraging your students, you can ask now, do you have a Gmail or an iCloud account? And, as you all are starting the college visits, maybe even scheduling the visits through the student's Gmail account could maybe be really helpful.
Right. And some of them, it's very cute, some of them have Gmail accounts they created in 1st or 2nd grade for school. Yes. Might be like Blues Clues Rocks. Yes. So maybe starting a new email that has a little more.
We had some Spider-Mans the other day. Some students didn't want to share with us. We were like, great. Create a new one.
Yeah.
This is a good time to create a new email.
It is, and then that can just sort of be where their college information lives. So we recommend that highly. So I think some of you might have questions too about summer plans. Mm-hmm. The good news is there are more opportunities out there for this group of students this year than last year. I feel like the summer after freshman year is tough because a lot of them aren't old enough for a job or even different camps and things like that, but there should be more opportunities for them this year. So it's a great summer to pursue something that they are sincerely interested in, to get a job if they're old enough, to pursue something independently that they're excited about. But I think in terms of patterns we've seen with college admissions decisions, having some sort of an interest and diving into it beyond the scope of just what's offered here at VES or any high school can be a real differentiator in the admissions process. So summer's a great time for that. I think it can get frustrating sometimes because we would all love to know what our children are super passionate about and love to do, and some of them very honestly don't know themselves. So it's hard. And I guess my best recommendation there is just to, if you get an idea, feel free to, send it their way. Though I know sometimes when ideas come from parents, they're like, oh, I don't want to hear it. If you have an idea you think would be great, you can send it our way and we can try to be the, suggester.
Conduit.
Yes, because sometimes, I know a different voice is more helpful. But, programs, you are probably getting your own emails about pre-college programs at different universities and things like that. Those can be really great. They can also be really, really expensive. And I think a rule of thumb in terms of the value in the admissions process of programs like that is if it costs a lot of money, it's probably not a huge honor to be admitted to it. It can show some sincere curiosity and interest to pursue a topic beyond what they're required to do. But it's to be admitted to a summer program at an Ivy League school is not equivalent to admission to an at all. It is not. Most summer programs are pretty come join us and pay $7,000 to be here for 3 weeks. It's really, some of them are really expensive.
But what I will say, what we tell parents is if a student is sincerely interested, we think in medicine or something in the science field. There are lots of programs. VCU has a youth science, medical, where students can see and witness surgery, and they can get an insight into what different physicians are doing. It's a great program for students to demonstrate curiosity or to see it affirm. This is really what I am interested in doing. Will it help in the college process? Likely not, but it may spur the student on to say, this is really what I'm interested in.
Yes.
And I know I want to pursue this. So, we talk to students about, is this something that you can afford? Is it a time thing where you really want to go and do this? But we're really clear, and it's likely not going to help as far as putting it on your in your activities. It is something you could put in your activities section in your college application, but exploring something during the summer locally where you're not shelling out thousands and thousands of dollars can be as equally as affirming as well.
We've also seen a rise in they're mainly online programs that help students organize their own independent research project and stay on track with it, and then ultimately sort of publish it in some way, shape, or form. Again, I think that's similar to the pre-college programs. Really sincerely interested in it and is diving into something that they love, it can be great, but those programs can also be expensive, and the connections they promise you with a professor from Duke will be advising you. At the end of that, the student might get a very sort of generic recommendation, or reference letter from that professor from Duke that probably isn't a huge help in the process. But if they find a topic and research it that gets them really excited, that they want to keep pursuing through the advanced studies program here at VS, it can be great, but it's not the magic solution.
So when we were meeting with juniors last week, the theme that we talked a lot about is authenticity. And, in the land we live in, and all of our students hopefully are talking to you all about AI and ChatGPT and how easy it is just to put a little question in the box and
Write
then
a college essay about the time when I.
right, or why am I interested in UPenn? And then ChatGPT will give super generic answers of all the great things about UPenn, but what it's lacking is the student's voice. And so, we are trying to help our students understand their voice and the authenticity in their college process is really important. And that is something that they own, they have agency over, and ChatGPT really can't give them that. Or maybe it can, but I think that colleges, what we're hearing are, colleges can vet their way through that. So how can we help your students in really allowing their articulation of what they're interested in? It may be an expensive program during the summer, or it may be doing something, at the local library and reading a canon or a, anthology of books by a certain author. So we've had students do all kinds of fun, different things during the summer that haven't necessarily, broken the bank.
Yeah.
So if you have students that you think are interested in a certain thing, or you want, how am I going to spend my summer, send them our way, and we can help brainstorm.
Do you have a list or a roster of local activities and things that they can do across disciplines that you can share with the students just to get them started thinking, or maybe brainstorm with you, because you all know so many things locally that I don't know, just to sort of get the process going, to spark his to spark some ideas in his head in terms of, oh, this exists, that exists, maybe this is something I can look into, and so on. And also another question, at this point, do they need to start working on things like a one-page resume? And is that something that colleges look for also as part of the application? Because Caden wants a job, just even a little part-time job at Kroger or something, which is great. I encourage him to do that. But he doesn't know how to get going with that.
Right.
And I don't know if it's too early for him now to have a resume. It seems kind of silly, but maybe that's what's necessary. I don't know.
And Nira, actually, I'll start with the second part. We started in critical thinking last year. They all started a resume. So he already has the start of one. It was in 9th grade, so they didn't have a whole lot to put on it. But so the point was just like, this is something we want to update. And when we'll check in with them again before the end of the year with the whole class and remind them of that. And all your kids were here last year. So those who are new might not have that yet, but we have the resources to help them start
also,
it.
I would say, send him our way, and we would love to brainstorm and just ask probing, inquiring questions about what students are interested in, and make suggestions for, potentially what they want to do. For having 3 kids that have gone through the summer job search, I would say most of those from working at Peakland Pool or Miller Park or they're not asking for resumes. They're asking for students to go online and fill out the application. So
And probably the same is true for most stores or
Kroger,
restaurants.
yes.
And,
Food Lion is still a paper application you could run by and just pick it up.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice that you know.
Yeah.
And the question about, we can work on compiling a list of local opportunities. I would say the one that more students have engaged with than any others are the camps and like shadowing experiences through Centra. And also just volunteering in the hospital. And I'm not sure if COVID has changed age requirements. I think a lot of stuff sort of evaporated during COVID and is just coming back now in terms of getting kids into different companies and organizations. I've heard that the age requirement to volunteer at Central might have gone up, but I have to double check on that. I'm not sure.
And we've had students that have done everything from there's an anatomy camp at University of Lynchburg to, different, Centra's always had a really good health intern kind of camp to sort of see different areas of medicine if that's something that's interesting to them.
Yeah. But a lot of the summer experiences that are more sort of formal like that, I think students aren't necessarily doing right here.
Right, yes.
But summer jobs, yes, there's all sorts of different opportunities right here. But I don't know that for our age, and probably, there's probably people watching, like, I can think of 12 different things, but
Yeah.
I think it's always a little bit hard to find local sort of group activities. I think most of our students find someone through a connection, and we can help connect them with someone who might be working in a career they're interested in, that they can shadow for a few weeks.
I know a lot of kids who do camps as well, being
Yes.
counselors,
Yes.
because I think that is kind of a leadership thing,
Yeah.
and that's something that they can always use.
Right, and there's sports camp here. Students get to either, depending on how old they are, volunteer with the VES sports camp or get paid to work the sports camp. So that's
And
really
students
nice.
interested in government have done page
programs.
or programs, with the local representatives, going and shadowing. So really trying to use those contacts is important too.
Yeah, and again, we're happy to help make connections, but it's pretty individualized. Yeah, but Matt's totally right. There's lots of kids who have the camp they've been going to for a long time, and then this is their CIT summer, and then next summer is their counselor summer. So, yeah, I know it can be challenging to try to help put together the rich summer.
But I would say to balance that, and something that our office talks a lot to our students about, since you all probably visited the school, you've heard Chris Button's lecture on the brain and sleep and nutrition, and that's a big, as two parents of high school students, we really, we struggle with, because our kids, are working really hard and maybe in the wee hours of the night doing homework, or maybe they're not doing homework, or we try to help our kids understand that balance of how important sleep is and how important nutrition, exercise, we don't really have to encourage too much, because all of our kids have afternoon activities where, but as parents, really encouraging that sleep, health, and also not obsessing over the summer programs or school. We talk about the balance, and sometimes we seem like we're, nobody's in balance all the time, but it really is important to help our students understand that this is, high school is just a part of the longer kind of overall health of living and learning and lifestyle, and creating habits for really a good, healthy lifestyle where they can thrive.
I try to find ways not to let them become fully nocturnal over the summer.
Yes.
I mean, some of them do. When they come back, they're like, all summer I stayed up till 4, and then I slept till 2. And that
Playing video games.
Yeah.
We've only had one student that I know that playing video games actually was a huge part. I'm thinking of Jalen, and how
There's a few. Yeah.
he's the only one I remember.
Yeah, he was a nationally ranked, along with being nationally ranked in basketball. He was
Right,
nationally
right.
ranked in his gaming.
Yes,
like at Call of
yes,
Duty, I
yes.
think.
So when students talk about how this is really going to help them, the gaming part, I'd really want to delve into that a little bit.
No, there are schools that have
That's true. That's-
real gaming teams and gaming
That is
scholarships,
true.
so we
That's
can't
true.
dismiss it.
And animation related to gaming. So
Yeah,
there's
it's so interesting.
I need to move on into the 2023s, I guess.
Okay, I know we keep digressing, but if we want to peek back at our list, I think Amy's sort of in the what parents can do realm too. Again, try to stay informed. We always recommend that sort of having one time a week when you try to get students to go along with you for a big check-in about what's going on, so they don't feel like every time they walk past you, you're gonna ask them something or pester them about something. I think it can really make a big difference. You might know that feeling when the student is, just in the car, like trying not.
Well, and I feel
to
like you
engage, 'cause I think
you
you're
all
gonna
are
ask.
really where we are. We're
Yeah.
driving our kids to school every day, and so Mary and Sophie probably more than any other student are like, if I have to listen to my mom talk about the PSAT or the pre-ACT, so we are with you and really trying to bite our tongue at times. But I think that's really important. A parent gave us that advice years and years ago, that
A long
they
time ago, yeah.
set aside, I think they had an hour on Sunday where they crammed in all the college talk and all of the school
the
talk.
grade talk.
Right, and they really talked about how that preserved their relationship with their child through this process. So I really have to remember to be better at that too. But I think it's helpful.
Yeah, and they can bring it up at any time. You can say, like, if you want to add, that's fine, but
Yeah.
that we aren't going to, yes,
Right.
yes, constantly be talking about school and college. So, and then carefully review that testing recommendation that you'll get in June. With test optional, and I know we touched on this before, it is sort of a great time still if a student, feels that my best work has never been, shown through standardized testing results, and they're always been a struggle for me. We could even, talk with you over the summer, early next year, and if it makes sense to primarily focus on test optional schools, that might be the right thing for your child, and that's great. If there isn't this strong, feeling that testing is not going to be beneficial to them, we do recommend some form of test prep. We see the results pay off when students sincerely engage in it. Sort of same thing as with summer project. If the student isn't sincerely engaging in the test prep, it can become a big source of frustration, especially if you've paid a lot for a course and they're not doing the homework, because the test prep classes give a lot of homework, usually in the form of do this practice test this week before I see you again, and then we'll go over the results. And if you're paying money and the practice tests aren't getting done, that can be frustrating for everyone involved, tutor, student, parent. Some of the best results we've seen for test prep is just the student who's really committed to working through the book or taking practice tests and looking over what they got wrong. Some students can do that. Most lose interest.
But it really can, the test prep can be an investment. And I talked to, I talked to a lot of parents about it being an investment and your student really buying in, because the homework, it's more than just showing up for the hour and a half prep on a Saturday or a Wednesday. There are things that students need to do in between. Test prep can be very expensive, but for certain schools where testing is still required, or we've seen maybe a payout if students do have higher test scores in the form of merit-based scholarships, or potentially in-state school admission versus not admission for in-state schools. We have found, doing test prep can be the difference maker. For those schools that still require SATs or ACTs, the Florida public schools, Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, those big southern SEC schools, testing is either a requirement or a requirement in merit. So that's when, we really push the test prep.
Yeah, it's turning out that the Southeast likes testing the most, and they're bringing it back. For now, Virginia is still test optional. The North Carolina publics are still test optional. That's great. Again, California has just banned, the UC system has banned the review of standardized tests. It's very interesting. New England right now is still very much test optional, but it's taking sort of a regional path. But we don't know. We don't know what the landscape will be for our kids yet. So
to best be prepared is to, have test scores that kids are really, that they're happy with.
Yeah, but it's not going to be a situation where every school is like, boom, we're bringing back tests. That won't happen. There will still be a ton of test optional schools for our kids. Because they were before COVID, too. A lot of schools were committed. Wake Forest, the New England small liberal arts colleges, George Washington. There's a ton of schools that were test optional prior to COVID.
And you can find those schools in fairtest.org.
Yeah.
There's a list, and we have our favorite schools that students have always gone to that are test optional, and so the Fair Test does a wonderful job of explaining the different types of schools and what test policies they follow.
Yeah, Wofford, Furman, Elon,
Wake Forest.
Swanee, all test optional, and I don't see that changing.
Does your office do anything to help the students kind of figure out where their interests are? Davis will say, well, I'm good in science and math, so he's just assuming he should have a
Right.
STEM career. Well, maybe that's not
Right.
his true passion, but that as a 10th grader where he
Yeah.
sees his strengths are. So do you do
Yes.
any sort of career assessments or anything you do? Okay.
Yeah.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
The one we use, it's called U Science.
YOU.
Yes, YOU Science, and it was created at Chapel Hill. But yes, it's an aptitude and interest inventory. It takes a while for them to do. There's some like little skill tests, and then a whole bunch of information collecting their interests, but it gives them, along with like a full report, talking about their personality and their strengths, which, I love reading those. It also matches them with careers that are a fit in both those areas. And you can organize, it's all online, and once you get the career results, it's neat. You can see the ones that are a combination of aptitude and interest, or you can click just aptitude and see the ones that line up there, or just interest and the ones there.
We love it. In fact, we've taken, Coach Porter hasn't yet, so that's his summer, it'll be his spring homework.
It's fun.
You all could take it, anyone can, if you just go to their website. And what I really love is when you're, you can delve into a day in the life of
Yes.
an aviation, traffic specialist.
Yes, so you click on it and it explains, just like Amy said, a day in the life, what the skills are, why you might be a match or a mismatch with the career, what majors people typically pursue.
Job forecasting in
Yeah.
the next 5 years.
States,
it's great
it's
information.
really great, yeah, once they dig into that. So we give that to juniors.
Okay.
When we've been using it a long time, and I think we were on the very front end of U Science, and at that point they said not to administer it before junior year, but now I think trying to get a wider base, they're like, give it to anyone.
Yeah.
So we might, we can't do it for this year, but think about doing it.
For younger,
I
yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's really cool though. It takes some time. But it's something very worthwhile to dig into, and that would be a great Sunday meeting. Like, let's sit down and look through the career recommendations on U Science.
And how long does the full assessment take?
About 2 hours or so. So we usually start it with them, but then they have to finish it on their own.
And it doesn't take the full I think it's
You can
supposed to
stop
take
and
90.
start.
It's supposed to
Oh.
take like 90 minutes,
Okay.
and it's little modules.
Oh, okay.
And so
Yeah.
it's 10 minutes here, 5 minutes here,
Oh, okay.
and they need to be in sort of a quiet area.
That's what I worry, that sometimes they're like half paying
Yes.
attention to it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the 2 hours was like.
Yeah, no, they can
Yes.
break it up, but hopefully they're like really focused when they're
Engaged.
doing it to get the best results.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's very helpful. So Erno, who just left, he won't mind me telling this story. Before he went back to grad school, I was stressing because he was thinking about like 3 different areas of interest, because he's a person who has always had many different
Wonderful.
interests.
He's a Renaissance man. He really
Yes,
is.
a jack of all trades. But I was like, no, you're not going to spend years going to grad school for something that you're going to change your mind out about again. So I had him do the U Science assessment. It was so helpful. And if he were here still, he would tell you that it really did help shape his decision to focus, become a nurse practitioner instead of doing more of a like health tech thing, because he has lots of tech interests too. But it helped him see that would not be as fulfilling to him. So thank you, U Science.
And it affirms that, when Mimi and I took it, very much we were in the humanities, education, land. There's little, some of the modules require students to do pattern recognition. There's math.
Nice.
Very clearly, we learned Mimi is not an
I would be a
expert.
detriment to society as a surgeon or a pilot.
With a
because
pilot.
I have virtually zero
The fast decision making.
hand-eye or
yes,
pattern
yes.
recognition.
So feel safe. Your children are in Mimi's hands in the
in
academic
this
land.
I'm great. This
yes,
is great.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, we're thankful we're not in the Delta.
And of course, they always phrase it really nicely, but the truth is,
You should focus
Yeah.
on,
yeah, it
Right.
takes you more time to
Yeah.
recognize. I'm like, it's
Yes.
true.
Can you manipulate it?
yeah.
You
Yeah.
you probably could,
Yes.
but I don't know, like, yeah.
You can't manipulate I think think the patterns, and it's one of those where it gives you like the piece of paper with holes and your
But it's all on
it's
the
all
screen.
digital.
And then you have to you have to watch it on the screen, and they give you like 10 seconds to memorize it, and then the pattern goes away, and you have to recreate it.
The
was
interest ones probably,
no.
because you're on a scale, and it's probably sort of like any of the personality things where like in this moment, would
Yes.
I react this way more than this way? So it's self-reported. But yeah, we found it to be pretty accurate.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yes, yes, we will do that. But we'll download their U-Science report and put it, so there's a section on SCOIR, the SCOIR, that we can share documents with you, and that's where the testing report will be.
Good try.
We'll put their U-Science report there too, but they will have to show you the career matching features, because they will log into that. Yeah, so it's fun. All right, college visits. I know some of you have already been taking college visits, so good job. This summer, I know it's hard because summer isn't the perfect time to visit colleges, because a lot of times the students aren't there. You'll have like campers there and a handful of kids doing research and things like that, but it's better than not visiting, for sure.
Especially for a first visit.
Yeah, so if summer is the best time, the easiest time to bring your child to visit colleges, I would say absolutely do it, because again, high school goes by fast, junior year is busy, especially if you have a student who's worried about students are allowed to miss some classes to visit colleges and go on visits, but that's really stressful for some students to miss class and they feel behind, so we'll definitely be visiting schools this summer.
And I would say, if we're continuing the theme of authenticity and students visiting a school and finding I'm sincerely interested in the school, college is also authenticity-wise. In yield protection schools, colleges want to know that the student is interested in the school.
Yeah.
You heard us last year talk a little bit about demonstrated interest, and that is just, we've seen for certain colleges, demonstrated interest has become a bigger part of the application process, and that really just means the student expressing interest in the college.
Yeah.
For some colleges that is really important. For others, demonstrated interest is not a piece at all. But if a student has visited a college the summer before their junior year, perhaps they've gone online and done some virtual visits. They may have even gone online and done, the engineering faculty Q&A. And so there's this pattern of a student demonstrating interest to the college. When a college is reading an application, is it strategic for a student to do that? Perhaps, but is a student also showing interest and might really be
good
interested?
information.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not a bad idea.
Yeah, for sure. So, and that, as Amy said, demonstrated interest has become a bigger deal with more and more students applying to schools. It's hard for them to figure out who might actually attend if admitted. So that's why they reference that. And that goes back to email too, the opening the emails. A lot of schools are tracking that. So again, like we said, so many of the problems we bump into, and it's not like there's so many problems,
No.
but if a senior is I don't know why I haven't gotten a decision, we'll call the school and they're like, well, we've sent them 7 emails. They opened the first one, but didn't follow the links, and they haven't opened any of the follow-up emails.
We
Then
can
you're just
solve
like,
a lot of
"Ugh."
problems. That's a problem where we're like, oh gosh, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
hard one.
Yeah, so, and we get a little naggy about check your email, so if, we'll say it next year too, we need to all be partners in the check your email movement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Any questions about that? We can move on to see what we haven't hit on for junior year. Again, a lot of your kids came to chat with us to double check their schedules for next year. I know Charles Watson, who does the scheduling, I think he has everything kind of getting set in very wet concrete right now, so changes still can be made if they need to be. But every year we encourage students to challenge themselves a little bit more than the year before, but remembering that grades are the most important factor in college's decision making. So sometimes we have a situation where a junior wants to take such a rigorous schedule that we are nervous that their grades will drop in their junior year, which is like the last thing we want to have happen. So it's something that always needs to be considered in balance. Like, yes, you want to take a rigorous schedule, but you want to be able to,
Excel.
excel and get great grades, the best grades you can still. So there's no way to know for sure you have it perfect, but that's the balance we have to strike.
And the student's interest in taking certain classes is part of the conversation. It's also the teacher recommendation,
Right.
the advisor, test scores are kind of considered
for some AP classes.
So, so the schedule that your children are talking to you about, hopefully, it's a conversation that a lot of different partners have had in creating that schedule for next year.
So if you have questions about that, we're happy to look into that too. They primarily worked with their advisor on their schedule, but again, a lot of them came to us for a conversation too, which was great. Yes?
So how important is it to show colleges that you had a well-rounded high school education?
Yeah.
Because when I was in high school, we were required to take biology, chemistry, and
Yeah,
physics,
yeah.
no matter what.
Right.
Has that changed now? Because they're looking for a well-rounded student,
Right.
but does that also translate into the curriculum, basically?
Right.
Even
It's
if
true.
it's not something they study later on.
Right. I know exactly what you're saying. So the VES requirement for sciences is that students must have biology and chemistry or physics. So they need 3 science courses. So they have more flexibility, right? And most students take chemistry in their sophomore year, but then there's all these different science courses and only 2 years left to take them. So, it becomes a decision of whether to take physics in their junior year or environmental science, or did they want to go back and take AP biology, or did they want to
Or
take
anatomy.
the cool biomedical science classes or anatomy? So there's a lot of choice there. And it depends on the college. I was at a William and Mary visit, and they said, like, we strongly prefer to see biology, chemistry, physics. That said, we've had many students admitted to William and Mary that didn't take physics, that took maybe AP environmental science than AP biology. And that probably lined up more with the students' interests. So it's never a bad idea to take the 3. But if there's something else that you really want to take that lines up with their interest, it might be and physics is not on the radar at all. It might be a reason to not take physics. I had this dilemma with my daughter too, about physics. So.
And the question that you had, that's a great question. The answer, and it's the answer that we give to 90% of the questions students ask us
Yes.
is, it depends. And
You're
so,
great, thank you.
Right. And I know, over the salad bar, Miss Chetlish, Coach Porter, can I take blah, blah, blah? And it depends. And so having a conversation with us is always great because we can sort of, go down the various paths. And I think at the core, we ask our students, everyone's required to take 4 Englishes, of course. Our students, most of our students will take 4 years of math. I think, for North Carolina public universities, it's a requirement that students take 4 years of math. So it's, families can go on individual college websites and just, Google UVA college preparatory curriculum requirements. And so sometimes you have to look, but those are the bottom line requirements. That's not necessarily what the average student has applying or admitted to the schools. So we really, based on our, 40 years of experience, I guess, helping students have a great idea of what a curriculum and what a transcript looks like for students at the, most selective schools on, and through the continuum.
Now, if there's any inkling that a student might want to pursue engineering, they need to take physics. And if they want to, apply to highly selective schools, they probably want to be planning their schedule, so they're taking AP physics and an AP calculus. Yeah. So when we're talking to students, we are looking at the 2-year plan, not just the junior year plan. hard choices. And I know, Chad Hanning speaks, I think he describes it very well, that the schedule you're taking is telling your story in a way. So you need to think about the story you're wanting to tell. It's hard sometimes for 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds to be thinking from that lens.
Right, because the story changes and meanders, and
You've seen a student who decided, I'm not going to take the AP class this year, get the better grade, and seen a student who said, I'm going to take the AP class and not get the better grade. Which one have you seen maybe gets farther in the application process?
It's a great question.
Have you seen that challenge happen where the person said, I'm just going to make grades, and they get whatever they want, and then someone who challenges themselves not get what they want?
Yeah, I mean, we see all the different permutations of that happening, and this is what I would say, and you guys can correct me. I think it's important to challenge yourself in the areas that you're really interested and excited about. If, let's say, for instance, your child hasn't loved math all the way through, it would make but they could, let's say they were recommended going into their senior year for either AP Calc, regular Calc, or AP Stats. And we know the regular Calc experience is going to be a friendlier experience. I would say that student who doesn't love math has always had a hard time, it takes up a lot of their time to take regular Calc and do well.
That said, it depends on what the rest of the schedule looks like if that student is looking at highly selective schools, right? So absolutely regular Calc. If the student, say, is interested in other areas and is challenging themselves with APs in other areas.
But a student doesn't have to be taking 5 AP classes to be competitive at highly selective schools. They need to be taking some, and they definitely need to be taking them in their area of interest. And maybe they're also doing an advanced study project in an area of interest, which shows that independent, diving into an area.
And the other thing I think Mimi is alluding to is we've seen students the junior year maybe be recommended for multiple APs, take those APs, and the grades were just wonderful, and where they wanted to be the end of the sophomore year and really, really dip their junior year. And could it have looked a little different if maybe instead of 4 APs, there were 2 APs or 1 AP? And, so it's really a conversation about what the student was recommended, where are their strengths, what kind of after-school activities they have during certain seasons.
Leadership responsibilities.
Right. So we really try to take into account all of it, and preparing for what that junior year. But the junior year is more challenging.
For a lot of students, we said, if they were really stuck and couldn't decide, do I want to do an AP in this or not? We're like, okay, let's start with the AP, but let's come back and have an honest conversation after 3 weeks. And if it just feels like a lot, and if you're staying up way too late, and your prognosis is not looking fantastic, you can drop down to the non-AP section. I think it's better to do that than to start and be like, oh my gosh, this is really easy, I'm not challenged. It's hard to move into an AP class, but they have to remember that piece. You don't want to get to mid-November and be like, this is really hard. This
That's where we
this
talk
is all
about
not going very well.
Yes, just because you can doesn't mean you should in all areas.
Yeah. That's a good question. But there's one student from several years back who her plan, no matter how we advised her, was to not take AP classes and to get amazing grades. And the student did. The student, I think, their GPA was 95 point something with no AP classes. And actually the student enrolled in them a couple times and dropped them and admissions results were all over the board. There were a couple of happy surprises, but a lot of, results that definitely didn't reflect a student whose transcript was just packed with super grades because their student hadn't challenged themselves.
So we had our junior parent night a few weeks ago, and one of the slides we share is the results from a survey, NACAC, which is the overriding organization of national college admissions counselors and people like us. And, you know, it lists what are the most important factors that colleges say is taken into account in the college process. So the grades, you know, number one, and then number two are the types of courses the student has taken.
Yeah.
So, you know, at the more challenging or the highly selective schools, the types of classes kids take. So it really is a balance. And again, we go back to it depends. You know, it depends. And then we could say, well, how is my student supposed to even know what colleges they want to apply? And so we really, that's the conversation we're having now, is to try to help students be in the best place they can when they're, you know, applying to schools.
I was just thinking of Ted Lasso. Did you watch Ted Lasso? You know, like the believe thing. We could put a like it depends sign over our door.
Yes, I love that.
And believe.
And then we can also. So my favorite part of Ted Lasso is, you know, the references to Dory, the fish of like just forget short memory, which is another, you know, what mantra in our office is the let it go.
Like Elsa.
Elsa is, you know, our students are giving what they have in that moment and doing the best they can, and especially in the testing process or the application process, we, you know, really, we have to help do everything they can and then let it go. And you know, really try to lessen the anxiety and stress that can be a huge part of this process for some students. Some parents think, why isn't this more of a stressful thing for my student? I need a little bit more instead of a little less. So, you know, we try to help students do the best they can, put the best forward, and then, you know, after applications, just have to let it go.
Yeah. And one thing as your kids move into junior year that is important to be thinking about, and I think they've been, you know, working on this all along the way, but is the relationships with teachers that they develop. They will be asking for 2 teacher recommendations at the end of their junior year. Usually that's from junior year teachers. So, you know, who knows them really well.
I think in the boarding school environment, like, they have so many opportunities, and I think another thing, like, I met with a student last week who wanted a coach to kind of give some insight onto what they want to have, what they want to pursue later on in life, and that's something that we can include in our counselor recommendations, because they'll have 3 overall recommendations, and I think it is good for, if you do have a coach that, you know, was your teacher, is your advisor, that has spent a lot of time with you, you need that insight into how they've helped you find your passion. You know, one of the students is super interested in filmmaking, and so he is a manager for the basketball team, and the basketball coach is actually the filmmaking teacher. And so you want to try to figure out who knows you the best and who's seen you kind of go through your trials and tribulations here at VES. And I think that's something that's really, really important, because you want your recommendations to not only highlight your academic success, but your growth overall as a person. And so that's something that we really hope that our students try to work their way through as they start to think about, you know, making sure their application is full of things that kind of highlight them, but also show their growth, just like we want their transcript to show their growth as a student.
Yeah. No, that's really great and really important. And like Amy was saying before, that theme of authenticity, which will be so important for them in their writing for colleges, and we'll talk about that a lot with them. Next year we'll show them samples of essays that were really wonderful and filled with voice. That authenticity will come through in their recommendation letters from our teachers and certainly from us as well. So to make sure they are reaching out and connecting with teachers and, you know, getting to know them and seeking guidance from their coaches and advisors and the adults in their lives. That's something that's really important that they check in with throughout their junior year.
As we're meeting with juniors now and talking about the letters of recommendation, you know, the letters of recommendation don't always come, as Matt said, from necessarily a teacher where a student has aced the class, but even perhaps a class where a student may have really struggled in certain areas and overcome that. And so, you know, the teacher can talk about resilience and a student sticking with something. that's great, because our students definitely are not perfect. They have to work through things, and I think, colleges want to hear that.
When does the, like, financial aid or scholarship opportunity stuff kind of come into play? Because it's amazing when you look at all the websites, our tuition averages this because of
Yes.
this type of support. And it doesn't tell you what kind of support it is. Is it a, academic-based merit
Such a
scholarship,
question.
or is it financial aid, or what is
Yeah.
it? And it's kind of crazy how many of the schools like, well, our tuition is $17,000, but our average student's only
Pay
paying,
this much.
and it's like, how do you survive as a school? I mean, is your endowment that great?
We
Yeah.
call that, what we try to help parents understand, it's great that you're bringing this up, because we talk about the sticker shock. My dad was visiting last week, and he went to Tulane and graduated. He's like a dinosaur. Hope he's watching, but not really. But he was talking about what the tuition was back then, what it is now, and just how it hasn't really stuck with like the cost of living and inflation. And so we talk a lot about sticker shock and what 80,000 or 90,000 is. Our parents paying 90,000, and certainly there are some. And what it depends on the school. At Virginia public schools, the students, when they're applying for school, some Virginia public schools will give merit-based aid, while others, there's not any merit-based aid. It is going to be purely based on parents' income and filling out. The private schools, most of what's going to be given is merit-based. And so how do colleges figure out merit-based? And then in addition to merit-based, there may be financial aid that's going to be based on parent income.
Right.
Every school, every college has a net price calculator where,
And you can go look that up now at any school. Go to their financial aid page, and that it's like legally required for the net price calculator to be there. And it will ask you simple questions about your family's finances and also students' grades and things like that, and it'll generate an estimate of what the cost would be for your family or your child to attend that school. And next year, especially when you get to the place where, let's say your child really wants to apply through a binding early decision plan, you need to feel confident that that will work out financially before you sign that binding contract. That's usually a good time to call the financial aid office and get even more detailed information about what your package will likely be.
and some schools are better than others. Remember, we were just talking that want to have those conversations, and we'll be able to give you a detailed, idea of this is really how much. And then you can decide, what, we can do this, and early decision is really the way that we'll go.
Well, just like athletic scholarships to the academic scholarships get reached out, the students get reached out for that kind of stuff, or is there anybody monitoring the academics of a student? I'm just asking.
It's a great question. And so the most selective colleges and universities, both public and private, typically don't give a lot of merit aid. It's congratulations, you were admitted. That's your merit. But those schools also tend to be the ones with the most generous need-based aid. And then it kind of works on like a reverse sliding scale. So like if a student is kind of overqualified, when you look at the profile of admitted students, like they will be an especially strong student in the pool, they are going to likely get a lot of merit aid because that school wants them, wants them to come and like improve the numbers for the class. We'll talk about this with your kids next year. I always say it's think of your options in terms of 3 columns, or what's most important to you. Is it prestige, like going to a prestigious school? Is it the fit that has just the right programs for you? Or is it the cost? And you kind of need to pick one, and know that that's what's most important. And you can hope for the others, but if cost is really the most important, you might have to sacrifice the prestige piece a little. Or maybe there might be some aspect of the fit that isn't perfect. And that's hard. You're like, oh, but I want it all.
Yeah.
Like,
And sometimes the overlap in that Venn dialogue,
Yeah.
Venn diagram is bigger than others.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that is a really important part. And the cost, what we've seen, especially in the past couple of years, that's been a bigger piece of the conversation for many families. And that sort of leads into our conversation with students, juniors especially, when we're building these lists, what is the good financial fit also, and having conversations with parents. So it's great, we're having conversation with junior parents now. We looked at these schools. Well, we know we're going to have to eliminate this and this,
Right.
unless you think that this is going to be a reality for us. And it's wonderful for kids to have that agency and knowledge at this point in the process, to know this is likely, merit at this school is not great.
Yeah.
So,
Or doesn't exist.
right, or doesn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah. We use another platform called College Kickstart, where we run at the end of their junior year students list through the College Kickstart platform, and it creates a report. Part of the report shows the merit aid, strength of merit aid and need-based aid at each of the schools on their list. So they can see, is it a 5-star merit aid school or a 5-star need-based school? And those are all, like, I think pretty much always, like, converse stars. Like, if it's a 5-star need-based, it is, like, half-star merit. And vice versa.
There are wonderful schools out there that students receive large merit
Yes.
awards. And I think, that's the keeping an open mind.
Yeah.
Well, do they play the game of, well, maybe you don't need the money, so we're not gonna show you the money yet?
There,
And then, kind of game, as well, where it's like, it
Not
would be good for a
for
kid's psyche to get a merit-based award.
yes.
there,
But because mom and dad have had a good life, they don't get that. But that's not what this is about. This is about,
They-
boosting your child for the next level if they get something like that. Yes, all what I did in high school was
Yes.
worth it because this is
Yes.
the reward I got.
yes.
Yes.
And that's where those different, like, 3 categories come in. There was a really great, slightly distressing article in the New York Times, I think 2 years ago. I'll look up the link and remember to share it in a follow-up email to this class. But it was about the different services that colleges use, especially in, like, the last 3 weeks before decisions go out, where they're estimating what merit aid would we need to give this family to get this kid to come. And then they're, offering more, in many cases, to families that don't need it, because they, like, want that family, and that family might have longer, like, or a bigger donor opportunity. In the long term, and then this kid who you would, like, love to cheer for is not going to get that merit aid, maybe even if their grades were higher. So it is like a complex web of sources that are determining those
That
packages.
said, there are some colleges that do a
Yes.
wonderful job of being very transparent on the website as far as this student has this GPA and this test score. This
Yes.
is the merit, that the student will receive.
Pre-qualification.
And so, as awesome as that, we found one school this year that was sort of, we had some surprises in college admission decisions this year. And, University of Tennessee has always been very transparent.
Yeah.
Students, you're accepted if you have this. And then this year, they beat Alabama. So shockingly, the applications increased. Truly, like from 30,000 to over 60,000, I believe. So
Yeah.
honoring those categories of merit became really tough for Tennessee. And so it'll be interesting to see the sustainability, next year and how that happens. But for the most part, if a school is going to share the transparency of merit, they're going to honor that.
Hope you don't mind me asking a very candid question.
Okay, yeah, I don't mind.
So, do you think that because our children go to VES, a private school, it handicaps them, both in terms of acceptance and also in terms of scholarships?
Ooh, I don't think in terms of scholarships. I really don't, because they should have more data data from the FAFSA, and some schools also use the CSS profile. Many schools use that where they can ask for more specific financial information. They don't know the aid that your child might be receiving from VES either. Like, and that's something we report, like the percentage of students who receive financial aid to come here or scholarships. So I really don't think it hurts from a financial perspective, nor I think there's so many advantages for students who are going to VES and a part of this community, especially in terms of their writing and the recommendations that they're receiving from teachers who know them well, especially in this time when authenticity is so important and things should look as non-robotic as possible. I mean, one thing that's real, I think school's a little harder here. I think, you know, good grades mean more here, but there might be circumstances where grades at VES might be like a pinch lower than at some school where all the kids are earning all A's. But at a school like I know at UVA, they review students' records in batches by school. So if there's a school where virtually every student is getting all A's in all their classes, they are seeing that. And they're always assessing students from the context of the academic institution they're applying from. So I really don't think that, and I mean, I think looking at our seniors' results this year, which have been super strong, I can say that with a lot of confidence.
Well, with the 2023s, what is the trend for where they're going or where they apply and where they accepted?
Well, every year since I've been here, the school that the more students have applied to than any other is UVA, and more students have gone to UVA. I think there was one year where the same number went to Virginia Tech and UVA, or maybe there was a really strong William and Mary year, but that sort of stays consistent over time. But yeah, they will be going all over. I think we will have more students going to the most selective schools this year than we have.
This was a very strong class.
It was a very strong class and a strong year. And we always try not to like share the kids' information.
Yes.
It comes out because they're still deciding. They have to make all their decisions by May 1st. But I would say every year more students stay in the Southeast than anywhere else. Virginia and North Carolina will have a handful of kids up in New England, a bigger handful on the West Coast, some in the sprinkle in the middle. But it was a really, really good year and a very strong early action results too.
Trends this year, I think, you know, each year, and we don't have exact numbers, but I would say students applying early decision and early action, that's only increased every year. I think we calculated like 99% of our students had applied somewhere by November 1st. So that trend has continued to go up, and I think it will only continue to go up, and so how that impacts our 10th graders just, you know, means that our students are doing what they need to do as far as visiting schools. And not all kids know where they want to go by the first couple weeks of their senior year. But I think students are becoming savvy and seeing how early decision can impact admissions and be really helpful in the admissions process. So I think that's a trend that we'll see, you know, probably continuing.
Yeah.
What percentage of early admissions require you to say yes?
So you mean like the binding?
Right.
That's early decision or ED, and not every school offers ED.
Right.
Right. Gosh, I don't have. Do you mean like in this of our students?
Yeah, I mean
in
just
general?
in general, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
So many.
when you make that decision to do that, you know, this better be the one, buddy.
Right.
You know?
So some schools like UVA, you can pick ED, you could pick EA. That's early action. That just means you got your stuff in early, and you'll get a decision back earlier. And then there's regular, and that's usually a January deadline, and you don't hear until late March. You don't get an answer back. So our students like to get information as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
It's very hard to wait. I think like most students in this generation.
popular schools that our students might apply where early decision is binding would be Virginia Tech, Virginia, Wake Forest, Boston schools.
All the well, not all of the, almost all of the Ivies have it. Some have something called REA, restricted early action instead, where it's not binding, but you're making a promise you're not applying early binding anywhere else, nor are you allowed to apply early action to any private school. In most cases, that's how REA works. But yeah, most of the highly selective schools have early decision. It helps them a lot. They lock in their class with early decision.
And then
Some-
at that point, you can only pick one to apply to.
Yeah, until you get your answer. If it doesn't go your way, then it like
Then-
opens
right.
back up. And you can apply early action to most schools if you apply early decision. So you can imagine we have a lot of students who might apply early decision to a school that's a little bit of a reach for them. Let's just say Vanderbilt. They apply early decision to Vanderbilt, but then they also apply early action to UVA.
JMU.
Yes, UNC and a group of schools. If they get in early decision, they have to withdraw all those other applications right away. And they don't get the application feedback, of course.
So that's the way it works. So you don't apply early decision to your number one school and then wait to hear from them
Right.
in order to apply by
Right.
January 1st.
Yes.
Because you won't hear from them by January 1st.
You will hear
Oh,
from
you
them,
will hear
but
from
you'll
them.
hear from them by like December 20th.
Oh, okay, so.
Right,
which
so
you
if
do
you-
that.
So
Right,
enough
if a
time to get
student
in.
hasn't applied anywhere else, it makes for a very sad Christmas break beginning.
And
Because
January
they're like-
1st is the application regular for many schools, and what we've honestly found here is that like at Virginia Tech uses regular decision for space available. So we really recommend if they're interested in Virginia Tech is the other way to go.
So
Yeah.
ethically, you do early decision and then early action for everyone else. That's the way to do it.
Yes,
That's
yes.
correct.
Now,
Okay.
just to add another ripple, there's also a bunch of schools that have early decision 2. That's usually a January deadline. So let's say you applied early decision 1 to Vanderbilt, it didn't work out, but you really loved Emory too. You could apply early decision 2 to Emory here. And by then you could also send regular applications anywhere you wanted, no restrictions.
And we do have students that do regular decision or early decision too. Perhaps that student really wants their senior first semester grade to be part of their application. We talk about putting your best foot forward first. And so if students need that first, semester, then that they'll want that to be part of the conversation. There are some schools, University of South Carolina, they don't ask for senior year grades at all. And even if students are deferred from early action, their decisions are still made on the grades through the junior year.
They're not going to consider, and Virginia Tech too,
At Virginia
right?
Tech,
They
yeah.
don't use senior grades at all, just the schedule.
Just the schedule.
Yeah, I know. And these things change, so that's part of our job is we try to stay on top of it and make sure the students are, making the best decisions given all of the variables. And just looking through here, one thing that is important, you probably want to make sure, unless your child is like firmly in the test optional camp, and we'll want to talk to you about that to make sure everyone's on the same page with what that entails, so that can be a great choice. It will be best for them to make sure they've taken either the ACT or SAT before Christmas break next year. And we offer a school day test, and that's in October for both the SAT and ACT. That's a really easy way to get that under your belt. Many students for their first official SAT or ACT haven't done a whole lot of prep. They kind of use it as a baseline and then might do more prep over the winter and try again in the spring. But this summer coming up is sort of the earliest time we would recommend any kind of test prep for students who are like motivated and want to.
And
Get
if
on
students do say they're doing test prep in July and August and feel like that's really their time to do it, there are national test dates on Saturdays in August and September, and students can take those. They don't need to take them here. Taking it here is nice and convenient, but if a student feels like I'm doing test prep for 6 weeks and I
just
am
want to take that test.
right, then that's fine. They could take it in August and they're happy with their scores be done.
Yeah,
Or
we're
September.
seeing more students, and I feel so, like, I'm so happy for them and know that others must be so jealous who are just knocking it out by the start of their junior year. Like, trying to prep and get it done early in their junior year and not have to worry about it.
And colleges aren't looking at it like, you stopped testing your junior
No,
year.
they
It's
just
your score's
send
your
them the
score.
And to clarify, with your recommendation and help, pick one.
Yes.
No reason to bog yourself down.
All schools will, if they're looking at school scores, they're gonna take either.
No, yeah. I mean, I think we've had a handful of students who, for whatever reason, took both and sent them both. Like,
I can see,
I don't
might
think-
say that wants to take both.
We have,
I
we
think
have had
there's
those
any-
overachievers who wanna, they become test experts, and that's their
Yeah.
sort of competitive nature. And I will ace both tests, and I will, and that's sometimes when we're like, whoa, buddy, there's other things to focus on.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So we would recommend that most, I would say, I don't know, it used to be that most students probably tested 3 times. I bet more now are more like 2 times. Yeah, it used to
There
sort
is
of
a law of diminishing returns
after
after.
3.
Yeah. And we some call it, there are some test prep companies out there, or people that say, the more the better, keep paying us to help
Of
you.
course they do. Of course they do.
And we're like, really, there's just other better ways to spend your time.
One opportunity that we were able to offer juniors this year that I hope we'll be able to do again, and I hope more students take us up on it, is we contracted with Mindspire Test Prep. They started in Raleigh, Durham, and they've become a national company. They have really, really good teachers. And they offered for free for our students, for any student who got on their list, they would send them a practice test on Friday evening. They would have online proctors proctoring the test Saturday morning, but make that proctoring recording available to them to do later in the day if they wanted. They'd have them send back their finished test by Sunday. They'd score it, give it back to them, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday between, I think it was 7 and 8, they had an online course where they would go over a different section of the test, whether it was SAT or ACT, with students. Our students who did it said it was wonderful.
And it was like
It
individual
wasn't-
tutoring.
Yes, because so few
that's
students to take actual practice tests and then get feedback on their individual results. And then they did office hours on Sundays too. So it's like a great service. It's basically what you pay a lot of money for private tutoring. But yeah, it requires some motivation and determination.
It was free for our students. Our school paid, so it is definitely something we'll encourage kids if we're able to do that next year.
Yeah.
So they will be doing that?
I hope so, if they offer it. I think Mindspire is a little like, not many people, we paid for it, but not many people did it. So they're trying to tweak it to make it work, but yeah. I think, it was a handful of who were like, I wanna do my best, who did a great job with it, and it helped a lot. Yeah, so there's that, we'll keep you posted, look for emails about how that works out next year. No, I think we've covered most.
Yeah, you guys had great questions.
Yeah, the questions really helped. We talked about finances, just trying to keep them healthy. We talked about email. You're gonna get annoyed with us talking about that, but it's really, really important. It's really important.
And also really spending the time talking about other things other than the college process. And if you feel like you need, we're here. We're here for that third-party collaboration and help in any of the pieces of the process.
Thank you so much.
You're
This
welcome.
really helps.
Oh, good. Yes. We love your kids and are so excited to help them. I'll probably
Email.
cry a lot though because I just love them.
And because
they
she
are
does.
little teeny
And because
tiny,
you
and
do.
I cry a lot anyway. Oh.
Happy tears.
Yes.
Yay.
Yes. Well, thank you for
Yeah.
coming.
Send
and
email
being our
if you
live
have
audience.
follow-up questions too.
Yes. And thank you anyone still watching via live stream.
Thanks, you guys.
Yay.
Thank you